Hey, everybody, welcome to this week's Star Report. This is Jason. I am here at New Dimensions Crystals and Reiki in downtown Brenham, Texas, and bringing you this week's Star Report. Today, in case you're seeing this on not today, is September the 13th, and this is for the report for the 13th through the 19th. So I do Wednesday to Wednesday in case anybody's paying attention. And this week, the sun we start with is been intense. Probably will continue to be intense. And so that intensity of the sun really sort of exacerbates or increases the energy with everything that's helping us on the cosmos, because we are here giving a star report, and and of course, our closest star is the sun. And so what I mean by that is there's been several CMEs, and then several solar flares, right? So some have resulted in a CME, coronal mass ejection, where stuff shoots off the sun and comes and hits us. And so yesterday we were hit by a minor CME, but just enough to raise the meters on all the readings of the ions and the plasma and the electromagnetic current kind of stuff that sort of goes into the crust, into the atmosphere, and then sort of travels through and messes with us. And that was yesterday. And so that came with all of the symptoms that come with CME impacts. And there'll be an impact probably tomorrow, right? So tomorrow will be Thursday. And just a reminder for those of you new to the channel, CMEs, when they impact the Earth, separate from coronal holes, which is their dark spots, usually is a sort of compression or a slowing down or a heaviness. When we hit with CMEs, it's really an excitability and almost a trigger. And so a lot of times what happens during CME impacts is brain fog is increased. Right. And that's just sort of sometimes if you're an overthinker, that's the increase in thought patterns or the inability to pick out the thought pattern that you're trying to do out of a string of thoughts. A lot of times cardiac events, right? So if you have any cardiac issues, whether that be an arrhythmia or other kinds of heart beat issues or electrocardiogram stuff, the CMEs will sort of trigger events on that or make those sort of have things. Sometimes that's even a blood pressure thing, raises the blood pressure. If it's a mental sort of spectrum, right, where you have an anxiety disorder that usually presents as physical, you'll sort of feel a heart palpitation in the upper chest, right? So in between the throat chakra and the heart chakra, right in here. And that'll be almost a flutter. And so it's almost you feel like you're racing, something's about to happen, right? It's an anticipation thing, but it's really just the impact from the electromagnetic stuff from the sun. It also triggers autoimmune disorders, right? So flare-ups, outbreaks, and stuff like that. And like I said, mental spectrum stuff, right? So if you have depression, right, cause a depressive issue. If you have anxiety, if you have mania or any of those kinds of things, right, it might just sort of be hard to regulate yourself during these kinds of impacts. So pay attention to that. And then let's see. Oh yeah, and then that also affects the physical world, right? And so when that energy hits the planet, right, it sort of travels down through the atmosphere, stratospheres, and all the spheres that are around our sphere and go into the planet too, and then come back up. So sometimes that causes earthquakes and other sort of in-ground stuff. And so depending on whether you think that the internet is broadcast through satellites, those will be affected. So sometimes outages, slowdowns, difficulty loading and stuff like that. We're also still in Mercury retrograde, so those will be affected like that. But also, even if you're thinking that the internet is mostly underground cables, that sort of charge into the crustal system of the Earth is also going to affect those internet cables, right? So that's why slowdowns happen. So that's what's happening with the sun. The sun's going to be active probably through the entire week, right? So just sort of pay attention that these energies are going to increase or stay steady in this increased state for the next couple of days at least. So act accordingly and pay attention that you may or may not be having an issue, that it might be just the sun causing you to or replicating the symptoms of your disorders. Pay attention to that. Not medical information, not a doctor, but nonetheless, we are still in the sun sign. Speaking of the sun, of Virgo, right? And so we talk about the alchemy of where in the body we sort of feel that, right? So you might be having some gut health issues or womb issues, right? So Virgo, the Virgin, right? So the female sort of organs and the ability to create and create new things, right? So those are the kind of energies that are going on right now. So you might be feeling a lot of extra gut issues, probably mostly around the colon and the stuff that sort of excretes. So pay attention to that. We are still currently in 7 retrogrades. So all of this intensity the sun's giving us is triggering the retrogrades to be more intense and just sort of go through that list. Pluto, and that's about understanding and assimilating your inner self, your dark side, right? Your hidden self, the stuff that you don't necessarily show anybody, or hidden talents that might even be hidden talents from your own self. Saturn's in retrograde, about creating an authentic occupation, right? Are you doing what you're meant to do? Are you being authentic while you're doing it? Are you doing it in a way where you can make money? Are you getting in the way of that, right? So, and that's just sort of about responsibility, consistency, habits, um, things you should sort of be paying attention to with Saturn in retrograde. Neptune in retrograde, uh, really your inner world, spiritual core, like who are you as a divine eternal soul, right? Who are you at your core, right? And whether you believe that is in consciousness or the occupation of a soul or the encompassing of a soul around you or this union with oneness, however you sort of approach that, the Neptune energy is about what is that innerness, that continual existence of you-ness that goes beyond the body, it goes beyond time and space. That's really how do you sort of imprint that divinity, that infinity of yourself into this 3D reality. And, reality, you can put quotes around that if you want. I know a lot of my viewers and customers have a varying degree of reality, whether we're in a simulation, whether it's half simulation, simulation in a reality, who knows? But nonetheless, these are the issues that are going to sort of be triggered by Neptune, right? Who are you beyond all of that belief system that is external because you exist beyond all that? So pay attention to that. Chiron's in retrograde still. That's just recognizing and releasing old patterns, right? Sometimes we operate it a certain way and we start to understand it as an identity, but it really is just a pattern. It's not who we really are, but that pattern has been so ingrained, maybe in this life or even plenty of past lives. So Chiron sort of helps you recognize that and release old patterns, right? Because sometimes an old pattern, and these are sort of like old evolutional things, right? We used to live in caves. We used to, have this fight or flight stuff because things were going to get us if we were left outside the cave to get our food, to get our well-being, right? Some of those patterns might be ingrained from a time where we are no longer experiencing. And so those things are good to recognize and sort of release them so you can go beyond that, or see them so you can see how you've been limiting yourself unnecessarily. Mercury, right? It's fixing to go out of retrograde, but it's still in currently retrograde. Communication, technology, so on and so forth. Everybody loves Mercury in retrograde. Uranus is in retrograde. It's about being independent, and that's sort of finding out who you are, not just as a soul, but who are you as an individual. Irregardless, I don't know. I just got in the words like people always putting that on TikTok about using that word wrong, but nonetheless, when you're about being different or separate from the crowd, right? And doing what you want and being who you are rather than what is comfortable or what everybody else is doing. A lot of times we sort of have a hard time doing that. So Uranus is helping you sort of do that, learning to trust your own abilities kind of stuff. And then Jupiter is in retrograde. Jupiter is about planning long-term career stuff, usually life purpose. Are those laying over each other, what you're doing, what your life purpose is? Can you make that different? Are you old enough or ready enough to financially retire and quit your career to do your life purpose? Yada, yada, yada. Jupiter in retrograde is doing that for you. Right. And so pay attention to all that energy, which is going to sort of be overlapping what's happening in the regular stars. Now moving into, now we're just starting the star report. Today, 9/13, the moon is the furthest from the planet from Earth. It is going to be all month, right? And so, it goes on in ellipsis, right? And so it sort of spreads out and has a further distance and a closer distance. So the furthest away it's going to be all month. We're still under the cosmic kite. There is a rectangle, which is sort of taking place. That's a little bit down in the weeds, but those larger things about planets, oppositions, and stuff like that, those uh, do have an overarching uplifting effect, right? So they can help you move or act during these sort of times. So pay attention to that. But you want to look at your own chart and see where the oppositions are. Are they in this or that house of your own chart, so that you can sort of see what those planets are doing affecting you. Tomorrow, 9/14, Thursday, into Friday, 9/15, we have the new moon in Virgo, right? And so we just talked about we're in the alchemical sun sign of Virgo, and the moon's going to be in Virgo, right? So everything's going to be about this new creation, making these new choices. And when we get into the new moon in Virgo, that's the one I'm looking for. Bam. New moon in Virgo. Let's just go into the Friday part of that, right? Because it's over 24 to 72 hours that the moon's kind of full or whatever the location on the planet you are. It's either Thursday, Friday. It turns Friday, but while it's still Thursday in other places of the world. So that's why we have talking about it over 2 days. And so 9/15 is the strongest energy day of the both of them, right? And so let's just sort of the new moon is going to be in Virgo, like I said. And so the new moon in Virgo is really about abundance, right? It's called the harvest moon. And so this is when, we're harvested right before fall equinox. We're really sort of building up for a winter of, I won't say isolation, but we've harvested everything for winter. Everything's starting to slow down. It's even kind of cooler here down in Texas. It's cloudy today. Didn't get to go sit in my morning sun because there wasn't one because it was so cloudy. It was cooler temperatures, but when it goes away, all of a sudden you do kind of miss the sun. And so today, or excuse me, Thursday and Friday, the new moon in Virgo, it's really a time to sort of understand what seeds that we're going to plant for next season, right? And that goes into all of the career planning, all of the getting out of the procrastination energy and starting to do, right? You can't procrastinate. If you procrastinate in subsistence farming in the winters, right, then all of a sudden you don't have enough food to make it through the winter, right? So now is not the time to procrastinate. It's to sort of build these things and sort of really get into a discernment about, I won't call it diet, but what you put into the body, right? And that's what you consume, right? So are you watching the Star Report? Are you watching the news? What are you consuming, or what are you putting into the body? What are you trying to keep stored up through the winter time? So that goes with food as well, right? So sort of pay attention to what you're ingesting and what you're doing dietary wise, both energetically and physically. And that's something to sort of pay attention to during the harvest moon. Also, 9/15 is a 22 master day. And so 22 master day is just the numerology of the day, totals up to a 22. And when we get that master energy, it really is the ability, when we have a discernment, when we have a choice to make and we've decided on what that is, that it's a really good opportune time to do that, because energetic wind is at our back to make that choice. And then as claiming or acting in our master understanding of ourselves, the universe is much more able to respond and sort of clear a path for you to do that acting. So pay attention to that. I think this it'd be a good time to sort of make to-do lists, right? So this is almost like if you were imagining you had limited funds or limited sources that we had to save up until springtime came, right? What is your to-do list to sort of expand that out, but also tasks that you need to set up for when things ramp back up past the fall, past the winter. So to-do list is a good sort of thing to be paying attention to for Friday. Saturday, no, not Saturday, Monday, Saturday and Sunday, nothing really much is happening. Monday, the 18th, Neptune. We just talked about Neptune. Neptune is going to be the closest it's been all year. Closest is going to be to Earth all year on the 18th. And then on the 19th, it's going to be in opposition to the sun, right? And so when Neptune's in opposition, right, if we haven't decided through the 15th, right, with the new moon, harvest moon in Virgo, then the 19th with this opposition of Neptune, it really sort of highlights if you've got any indecision left on what really is your path or what you really want to do or who you really want in your life, then this opposition, right? So the sun is going to be opposite, Earth's in the middle. Sun and Neptune are going to be opposite each other. It really sort of highlights or lets you see directly what is that spiritual core that you're trying to work towards, right? And even if you're not doing a spiritual life, your spirit sometimes is the voice inside your head, the north node, the magnetic north, which is drawing you in a direction, right? So if you don't know where you're going and all of this stuff, like, it sounds great, Jason, I just don't know what the heck is going on. Sometimes Jason feels like that as well. Then really this sort of time on the 18th, or excuse me, on the 19th, is Neptune being in opposition is a time to go, oh, that's where I'm heading. This is an aha moment, a holy shit moment where we understand a synchronicity, an undercurrent in our life where we're like, that's what my soul's been calling me to do. And so it'll make sense. And so with all this energy of master numbers, the new moon, the harvest moon, that's going to sort of solidify it, right? If you're sitting there through all those days going, still don't know what I'm doing, Jason, this report's crap, wait till the 19th, right? And then be be open to how big the information might be, right? You might have been thinking small. You might be thinking you're limited. You might be thinking about insignificance because you're not rich and famous. However, all of the things that exist on the planet are in balance, and they're in balance because of our existence. And so these big aha moments really are the things that are not going to just shift your little world, but when you decide to act on them, are going to have that ripple effect of everybody acting in their own best interest, highest good, highest guidance, starts to shift the planet into something different, right? And so then it won't be just what we're trying or to consume or avoid consuming from outside ourselves, the internets, the news, whatever way we're bringing information or learning in, but it'll be this new information that sort of even shifts that narrative, right? So if you're trying to change, it's not about a discernment or picking a narrative that is coming from outside of yourself. It's really a discovery of what's eternally true about the nature of humanity and yourself, and then broadcasting that out in small little things, and that's going to have the biggest effect of changing that narrative that we may or may not be appreciating that's happening in the public sphere. So that's going to be an intense week, or it's going to be an awesome week, right? Everybody's waiting for revelation and understanding and discovery, right? So this is self-discovery. So it doesn't have to be guided by, oh, look at this great discovery on the planet, or look at how somebody's using AI, or look at what somebody discovered in the solar system. This is really this is a discovery about self that you can feel personally and then act upon, right? So if you think that's intense, it might be an intense kind of week, but it's really sort of a release, a decision, and understanding that when you sort of just give yourself to that, could be monumental. And right. And so all of this is of your own free will, right? If you don't want to do any of this, or you don't act on any of this, then it can stay as much the same as you like. If you're in a comfort zone, there's no judgment on that. It's just you'll be able to see what you're choosing and if there's a better choice for you. I think that's everything. Of course, I'm here at the shop at New Dimensions Crystals and Reiki.com if you want to come by and do a session. I've been thinking, and I haven't said this out loud to anybody else, I've been thinking to sort of readjust or do a revamp of the descriptions of what I offer, maybe sort of consolidating it into this, less services that do the same thing so that it's not as confusing. But nonetheless, they are on the website, energetic alignments, breath work sessions, You can find that all at newdimensionscrystals.com. And of course, if you're in the Brenham area or you're coming to the Brenham area, drop by the shop, ask me detailed questions that you might see that I've hinted at that I might have some knowledge about outside of the direct, here's the energy space for which we're all living. And we can sort of talk about that. And of course, one of my spiritual gifts is creating sacred space or nice holy space. So when you come in the shop, it's a nice cleansing, nice respite from the rat race of outside. And of course, that's done by intention. But of course, New Dimensions crystals and Reiki crystals really help hold a vibration of positivity and cleansing when used properly and properly cleansed on a regular basis. That creates a nice sacred space for people to come and visit. And of course, smells always enhance or lock in that, right? So the smell will trigger a spiritual response as well as you come in here because there's incense. I think you can see a little smoke moving across the screen. There is incense in here as well. So I think that's everything I'm going to say for real this time. Until next week, everybody, many blessings.